That's what I'm talking about. All right, hold on. Gonna go live. All right, I think we're live. So welcome, Joseph, once again, my esteemed co-host of Building Web3 Anything in Bubble. And it looks like we actually have a couple other guests. They might be in stealth mode for a little bit, but our super secret Google Meet invite is out there, which is actually awesome because, at some point, it'd be great to get live questions, whether that's through the chat or if somebody just wants to pipe in on the Google Meet. That's cool too. Just really quick intro before I pass it to Joseph. If you haven't seen this stream before, it's called Building Web3 Anything. Came out of just like a random conversation between Joseph and myself 3 weeks ago now. And the whole idea is, I think a lot of people don't realize, one, what Bubble is, what it can do. It is a no-code platform that can do a fair amount in a nutshell. But secondly, these days, what you can do in Bubble to build what I call low-key Web3 apps, which is basically future-proofed apps that can leverage the blockchain technology in a pretty seamless, pretty intuitive way these days, and not with a whole ton of effort. I mean, I think now the door is open for people who don't necessarily have a coding background to not only build an app, that's what you get with Bubble, but also to build an app with Web3 capabilities, which is like, pretty mind-blowing, right? Something that wasn't possible even 6 months or a year ago. So with that, I'll pass it to Joseph. Welcome, Joseph. And I think we have a couple other friends on the line, and we may introduce them at some point later. But yeah, Joseph, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm really excited, and I know you want to dive into it like directly, but I'm not going to let you off the hook, and you have to tell us all about your recent acquisition, literally end of last week, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not letting you off the hook. You absolutely have to talk about that because we're going to use some of those tools, right?
Yeah, so. We are. I was so excited to jump in. I almost completely forgot about that. So for those who might not have heard, so one to all, basically, my platform, our platform that's been focused on building the very best Web3 templates for Bubble. We basically have the most fully functional marketplace template in the Bubble marketplace. A little like kind of toot my own horn a little bit, but it is the highest rated app, so 4.8 stars. So, put a lot of effort into that over the last couple of years. Also work really closely with Novabloq, so effectively Artin, who's the main developer of Novabloq. Basically, I've been building these things in lockstep over the past two and a half years. It started 2 years ago, 2 years and change ago, where I reached out to Artin and his team and really just started brainstorming. Like, the process continues today, right? But it's very similar. It's just kind of like, what if? Can we do this? Like, can we build a full-fledged marketplace completely in Bubble, right? And that had never been done before. And it was an open question. It wasn't like a guaranteed thing that we could do it. And long story short, through some iterations, again, some really close collaboration with Artin, that initial version was built on the Referral protocol, which was great for what it was during that time. And we did it. I mean, we built a full marketplace, had all the key features you would need for a marketplace, and that's how the thing kind of got started. So fast forward to now. We just made an announcement that one.GALLERY acquired Novabloq. So basically bringing all the goodies under, the same platform. So now you have the best Web3 templates, the best plugins. So there's 40 plus plugins, and we'll be touching on some of those in this session today. And also just like, experience wise, right? So I focus just 24/7 on no code Web3. Artin and his team very much the same. And now, again, just all kind of coming together. We have a great Discord. So if you have any questions, you're just curious, Web3 curious, as they say, just feel free to drop by the Discord. And, I'll certainly say hi. And folks like Joseph, others are always happy to just chime in and help people kind of get up to speed, because that's the whole name of the game, right? It's trying to get the word out that, hey, if you have a really cool idea that touches on blockchain, doesn't even need to be completely, focused on blockchain. Blockchain can just be a supplemental feature or just, something that just gives it an added little oomph. All that's possible now. And on top of that, in zero code and with the best UX that's basically out there as far as I've seen. And I've been kind of looking at this stuff pretty closely for a while. So yeah, man, I'm super excited. I think this opens up a lot of doors too in the future. Some of the things I'm really excited about is just continued innovation, right? So some of the things we can do is just more closely tie together what's going on or what is possible in the apps, not just in my template, but just apps in general, and what is, possible in the plugins, right? And kind of bringing those all together. So thank you for bringing that up. Again, I probably would have like totally skipped over that, just given, where my head is at. But yeah, appreciate it. I think it was really exciting news, and I was really happy to see some of the feedback that I got from the community.
Yeah, I mean, we fully support, the plugin producer and the person who teaches us how to use them by offering a totally free template with everything in there, really well explained. It's amazing, And this is what, episode 3 now.
Episode 3, yeah, man. And
we're not running out of ideas. Seems like you said we might tie it back to what we were doing in episode 1 and 2.
That's right. So
and all that live in under an hour. So don't let me distract you, but I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, so we're going to use some of the building blocks from prior steps. So in this case, specifically episode 1, what I can do is actually I can put a link to that in the description. Starting to earn my YouTube stripes here. Good old link in the description thing. So the focus of episode 1 was to build a fundraising platform in Bubble with Web3. And what we used for that was a particular contract called the split contract, which basically what it does is it's kind of a piggy bank, and it just automatically divvies up whatever funds it receives into a predefined percentage allocation, right? And in that particular case, we were just setting up a fund for a specific recipient, one recipient, right, who's maybe looking to start, a new business idea, basically crowdsource, etc. So that was one usage. But in that...
It was me. It was
me, the recipient. It was Joseph. But dude, I know you're building it for the peoples, right? So like, certainly something that other people could leverage in the future. And the functionality of its core, right, is again,
I think I'll build it on some level for folks that cannot verify the contract. That's a Web3 joke. That's a Web3 joke, folks.
Yeah.
It's definitely for the people, right? So,
yeah. So what we're looking at is actually, the page that we previously built. And again, high level, right? What we have here is the ability to create a split contract. And we had some other data attributed it, this concept of like a target, a funding target that we wanted to incorporate. So we have that concept built in there. But at the end of the day, the key output here is a contract on chain and one that, again, automatically and transparently takes funds and divvies it up. Now, coming at it from episode 3, Joseph brought up a really cool idea, a bit of a challenge, right? And again, I think that's the name of the game here is trying to tackle new features and just trying to dream up stuff. Like what happens if you took this Web 2 concept and gave it a little bit of a Web 3 spin? What comes out, right? And so for this episode, the concept that we're going to be looking at is an affiliate program or an affiliate system. So for those of you who aren't familiar, and I'm actually pretty new to it. It kind of came on my radar pretty recently. I know it's probably been around for ages, but so an affiliate program is something that, different models use, different businesses use, typically SaaS businesses, but not always. And, the basic setup is you use a referral code or you generate a referral code for your customers. Your customers can then use that referral code to invite other folks. And I think the thing that is a little bit unique is that they actually, I don't know if this is like the strict definition of it, but again, the model I've seen more recently is, the referrer then gets some percentage of the referees, the person they invited to the new platform, some percentage of their, you know, their revenues, right? Their subscription fees, let's say, right? So it's a pretty interesting model. It's basically a way to, you know, incentivize your best customers, best patrons, best fans to, you know, help you get the word out, right? And again, you see it a lot in Web2. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that, put a little bit of a Web3 spin on it. I think the majority of the setup is actually going to be more like Web2, like in nature, because what we're going to be doing is doing things like, okay, you know, how do you set up a referral code? How do you pass that? How do you capture that? And things like that. Those are kind of more bubble based, but at the end, what we're going to want to do is bring that back. And actually, I thought it'd be kind of cool to just bring that back to the fundraiser concept and say, you know, hey, what if the folks that you referred, you know, you get some small percentage of the funds that they've raised or something like that, right? So so cool. We're gonna just jump right in. Before we do that, actually, let us just what's usually a pretty good practice is just to kind of kick the tires, and check the current functionality. One thing I might do later, this is just because I have a little bit of OCD, is up like bare bones and just literally testing the buttons and making sure they work. Level 2 is starting to build a little bit of a framework around things, make sure that they are functioning the way that they should. And level 3 is building like basically more of a structure so that, you know, the user experience is better. And if, for instance, there are certain errors or things like that, you can catch those as well. And actually, what I might do is actually just pull in, just again, because a little bit of my OCD is kicking in here. What I might do is just pull in a loading screen. And again, what we can do here is just walk through a little bit of the bubble basics, right? So again, you know, you can see this on episode 1, episode 2. Bubble is pretty intuitive, you know, the way it's broken out. So right now we're just kind of looking at all the different pages up top, reusable elements or widgets, as I like to call them, down below. And what I'm going to do is actually just kind of pull in, I have like a placeholder loading screen that we're going to pull in. And I got to actually just find the right widget here. So here we go. So we can pull in this one. And one thing that is pretty handy too is you can copy any widget with workflows and basically paste it back in. You know,
hey, Andrew?
Yeah, yes.
Can you name those plugins? Because I just want to hear it together, you know, see that link.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, when I come across a plugin, I'll definitely name it. In this particular case, these aren't plugins per se. These are actually just.
These are elements. Yeah. Elements and so on.
So
okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, these are previous elements that I've built. So again, this is, as Joseph said, this is our one.market v5 template. You can see it in the Bubble Marketplace. Again, I have links in the description. It's open source, so any of these pages, apart from the one that we're building right now, but I can certainly open source this one too. Any of those elements you'll be able to see, and then also just kind of dissect, right, and kind of see how they're put together. So I'm gonna paste this with workflows. So now we got a pop-up page, and actually this one might be a little bit. Let's see. Okay, this one might be a little bit advanced for what we're doing. Anyway, okay, maybe I'll come back to the loading screen. I think the more important thing right now is kind of focusing, you know, specifically on the affiliate.
It's funny that, you know, like how the loading screen is so damn complicated, and it's not just this loading screen. It's all loading screens in Bubble. You cannot meet a Bubble developer that wants to show you how they made a loading screen. It's impossible to find, but you can look at the template.
Definitely. You can look at the template, and I'm actually looking for one that is just a simple spinner. But it's it's one of those things, like when you're looking for it, it's in one of these elements, and we'll come back to it if we have time at the end. Obviously not mission critical, right? So what we're going to do here is actually we're going to create a new page. We do that pretty simply, and what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate the fund page. And what I might do actually to just to prep things for future episodes is kind of duplicate the fund page and then strip it down a little bit. So then we'll save that as basically a template page, like a blank page that we can use for the future. So let's say we're going to create a new page. We're going to base it on the fund page we already have. And the fund page was already, again, something we built in episode 1. You can see how we set that up pretty much from scratch in the prior instance. So what we're going to do in this case is actually just remove some of this stuff. What I might do is just pull the, a little bit of this header out. So I just copied and pasted this header. And what I'm going to do here, I double click, go to layout, make first. So what I'm doing here is I'm kind of moving it around in the batting order. And this particular container, and they call it all these groups, this particular group or container is set up as a column-based container. So you'll see here content, right? It does a couple things. It organizes all of its children groups in a certain way. So you can have, column, row, fixed is basically everything is just based on coordinates, X, Y coordinates. Aligned to parent is kind of cool. You can kind of put it in the top left corner, bottom right corner, middle, whatever. So they all have just kind of a predefined way of effectively rendering all the different elements in a particular group. And it's pretty powerful. It's like totally like Lego building blocks, because you can effectively build any structure in your page just from these, like, call it 4 basic types of groups. And so for a column, as you might imagine, what it basically does is it just stacks things, right? So right now I took this little header, I moved it first in position. So now you see at the top, I'm literally just going to say, I want to shift it 1 down. So it's just kind of moving things around in a certain batting order. The other thing you can do is actually click reveal in elements tree, which is super helpful for any building process, right? I actually like to see it side by side. So not only see it how it's going to be rendered on the page, but also see it in its they call it the element tree, but basically just like an expandable, collapsible, view of all the elements and what order they're in, right? So again, I have the fundraiser, the big header. Now I have this smaller header, and I'm actually just going to clear out some of these so we can see how we're going to set this thing up, again, pretty much from scratch, right? And actually, what I'm going to do here, like I said, was create this as more of a placeholder. And it's going to give me some errors right now because I think there's some workflows attributed to this page right now. And when I cleared out some of those prior elements, it's basically saying, hey,
I have a little question that I want to shoot at you.
Yep.
Say I'm building my thing, which is true.
Yeah.
And it's not in a template, which is this one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, say I get a Bubble agency account. Can I merge? Or what would be the easiest way to kind of merge or kind of use the template as a tool quickly by removing the elements rather than building from scratch,
Right. Yeah, so if you had the template, I would say the biggest jumpstart is to pull the header into any new page. I mean, that's really the key thing we're leaving here. At the end of the day, when you're looking at this, you got kind of the content area in the middle, you got the header, and you got the footer. The footer doesn't really have a lot of logic in there. It's just basically, for navigation, there's some links. But the header in the templates case is pretty pivotal because it has a lot of the core connectivity plugins. So I'll name the plugins now, actually, as just a quick kind of review. So in the header, we have the this one floating group plugins, which houses basically all the critical critical plugins. But the key ones are Web3 and MetaMask, right? That's like the OG one. What that basically does is gives us access to some of the base Web3 library functions. So things like check balance, right? I want to check the balance on a wallet. We also have Web3 Auth, which is one of my favorite plugins, actually. It is like the Swiss Army knife of connectivity. That one's located in the header. You have the third web. I'm still not quite sure what the conf part of it is for. I always think conference, but basically what it is for connectivity and wallets. And so what that does is it basically links up the third web, the entire third web like framework, the entire infrastructure to whatever wallet provider you're using. So in this case, we're using Web3 Auth, but that third web plugin can actually link directly to MetaMask. It can link directly to Wallet Connect, and et cetera, right? So it's really nicely. These are built specifically to link up with each other. We also got NFT Checkout, which is the Work plugin. That's the one that we would use for doing credit card checkouts, purchases of NFTs, and down the road, any other kind of on-chain payment, right? Finally, got Web3 Utilities, which is it's an offshoot of Web3 and MetaMask. Basically, has some additional function calls in there. They're a little bit more like granular. It's like if you want to convert different currency types, with each other. This is a little bit more in the weeds, but Ethereum technically goes out to 18 decimal places. So you can convert Ether from 18 decimal places to Wei or Gwei, which is like basically, 9 and 0 decimal places. Anyway, there's like function calls like that that are located.
By the way, we saw that.
Yeah.
I think on the first episode, right?
We might have. I'm trying to think back. I mean, yeah, potentially. It's one of those things where
some or all of these plugins sound awfully familiar to me.
Yeah. We may have actually, when we touched on also the work checkout, right? Because sometimes, we try to do as good a job as we can to just make this super user friendly. Sometimes different smart contracts and or different services expect values in different ways. So some will just say, hey, if you want to list it, just list it in like kind of the plain English, naming convention. So if I want to sell something for 10 ETH, you just send the value 10, right? But some smart contracts are like a little more technical. They basically say, if you're going to send the price of something, don't send it in ETH, send it in like the most granular, currency, or the granular kind of unit possible, which is Wei. And so instead of sending 10,000 ETH, instead of sending 10 ETH, you have to send the value 10 with, I think, 18 zeros after it. So,
okay.
So that's when, using this conversion thing comes in handy, right? So again, we're not going to...
I think that's going to come in handy when the price hits like 120,000 on Ether. Yeah, because then it makes sense that 18 decimal places is like 6 decimal places for a penny of Ether or whatever.
Yep.
So
there you go. So
totally meaningful.
So someday we'll get there. So just coming back to this, and I just realized I spelled template wrong, but that's okay. We can actually.
I didn't want to say. On the moment.
In the back of my mind, I'm thinking of pate or something.
But that's
like
an
that.
easy fix on Bubble, really.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe maybe I'm like hungry or something. I'm thinking of lunch. So we got the template here. We are we're just gonna actually leave this, and we're gonna dupe this again. So in future episodes, we might use this as a starting point. But again, the key thing to answer your question, Joseph, in my mind, is to start with the header. The only other thing we're getting by duplicating this is just some of the formatting, right? I could just as well drop the header into a completely blank page, but I would just have to manage some of the stuff like, what's the width of the page, and sometimes just some of these visual things help a lot. Like this content thing has a bit of a fixed width to it, which is 1200 pixels, right? So, so some of that stuff helps. It's not super complicated, but it's just a little easier on the eyes. So we're gonna duplicate this once more, and I see I got Jason Burns. Cool. So let's see. Okay, he's asking about parameters and doc support integration. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think actually, Jason, just to answer that, that's part of the reason we're starting to do some of these videos. I mean, the whole idea is actually to do. I don't know. I found documentation helps, but these days I think videos actually are a little bit more intuitive. So we're trying to kind of cover our bases, and then actually just draw specific links to like sections of each of these videos that might be most relevant. And also just covering topics, right? Just basic topics in terms of like episode 2 is blocking and tackling, like how do you get something set up from scratch. I think the in the future, what we could potentially do is actually just dive into specific elements, right? I mean, again, if that's something that folks would find helpful, we could come up with a particular functionality or topic that takes an element and spins it out, and we can just do a little bit of a deeper dive on the element itself. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail after I just spin up this page. And that's actually particularly relevant for the latest version of the template, which is V5. We actually spent a fair amount of time actually trying to make this much more modular. So I could give a little bit of a quick walkthrough on some of these elements, right? So previously, the minting page, let's say, the create item page, had just a whole bunch of logic, just all kind of jam-packed in that one page. And what we did was we actually broke that out. So now we have one widget, which is for listing it, right? You kind of, it has, do I want to put it on sale? Do I want to put it on auction? That's in one widget, and that's this create and sell box. We have another one now that is specifically dedicated to creating the different attributes or properties. Like, if you're talking Bored Apes, it's, do they have cheetah skin versus sunglasses versus whatever. We have another one which is strictly for creating collections. So, first-time user coming in, they don't have a collection, they press this plus button, launches the modal to create the collection. We got another one for setting royalties, which is pretty cool. That actually, dovetails back to what we covered in episode 1, because the split contract is pretty central actually to the royalties, particularly in terms of creating multiple royalties. And so each of these, right now they're dropped into the create item page, but you could also, without too much effort, just basically repurpose them, take them, put them on other pages. Obviously you can, edit them directly too. And the other ones I'll touch on before we jump into the affiliate stuff is some of the elements on the item page. So the item page is basically, when you look at a particular NFT, it has the image of the NFT, it has the price, it has the history. So what we did was we actually...
Some kind of like preview, yeah?
Yeah, so like basically, if you go to OpenSea and you look at one of the NFTs, let's see if we can actually... Let me duplicate a page. And I think, again, it's always helpful to take a look at something, in real time. But, as that's spinning up, what we did was, again, we tried to make it more modular, because originally the item page was just jam-packed with all this stuff. If you think of all the things you could do with an NFT, like put it on sale, bid on it, burn it, refresh it, blah, blah, blah. All of those things have some workflows attributed to them. And previously they were all just like jam-packed into one page. So like we had a super long list of workflows. And even sometimes my head would spin trying to kind of parse it out. So one big goal of this was to just break that out. And my personal goal in my head was to get any given page or element to have at most like one page of workflows. So it's just easier on the eyes, more intuitive, human readable. And if somebody's looking at it for the first time, their eyes don't glaze over, they can, have a much better chance of like stepping through it and figuring out, oh, okay, so this is what this does and that does, things like that. So just to kind of look really quickly at what I'm talking about on the item page, we'll go to any particular item here. Go to my nice SVG logo, which I nerd out every time I look at this thing. So basically, this is kind of like the item page. You got the content up top. Some of the cool things are for the template, it'll actually cover images, audio, video, and 3D models. So you could mint a 3D model. I think the format is GLB. But yeah, each of these modules here, like what's the description, the name, the pricing, all of that used to be just all kind of jam-packed into one.
Wait, that logo. Wait.
Yeah.
That logo.
Yeah.
That's a real NFT.
Yeah. If you look
I can buy that right now. I can have your logo as my NFT now, out of spite. I could totally do that.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's just on the template, actually. I could.
Yeah, it's
do
there.
That transaction.
It's on
just
the
on the template.
Yeah, it's on the template. It's also on chain, so we could look that up. It would show up on. This is testnet, right? So this is Polygon Mumbai, but it would show up on testnets.OpenSea or testnet.Rarible or whatnot. So it's there. It's a real thing.
Like that part, man.
Yeah. So anyway, a little bit. It's a great question though from Jason. So totally appreciate that. But a little bit of
by the way, Jason, you should we should get together, or you should do it like me, and you can actually call one.GALLERY, and Andrew will hold your hand and give you emotional support as you execute, because he's done it before, and he's gonna do it again if you let him. So
yeah.
I know that he's too low key to mention that part, but I'm not. So if you want, maybe we'll figure something out, get it in a group, and if we're doing the same things, it makes sense, right?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, that was the impetus for this initial show, which was just to try to help people like ramp up, right? And it does help to cover topics that are more relevant to more people, just in the interest of time. But yeah, if you have something that you're curious about, that you've been trying to figure out, definitely bring that up. And we'll try to tackle it live, right? So here I am. I'm starting to kind of build this out. Actually, didn't realize that we took a couple of detours, so already some time in. But what we're going to do is we're going to start to generate the actual referral code, right? So I just basically dropped in, just drag and drop, effectively an input. So it's basically a text input. And we can use this to, name a particular referral code. Let's say if you have different campaigns or whatever. And what we're going to do here is actually...
So that part with the referral code is kind of like, because Bubble's not so good at generating random numbers or strings and stuff like that. So it's like, also, why not just let people name their code? Because they're going to have to send to people that have to see it, right? So if they get a name, that's
okay.
So
actually, we are going to generate something. So Bubble actually has, this may be a more recent thing, but they actually have a way to generate a random string. So we're going to take a look at that in just a second. But the thing that, what we're also going to do is create a little bit of an object structure around this, right? Because at the most basic, right? So here we are, we went to data. We're going to create a data type. Let's call it a tonic referral code. So we just spun that up. Now we have a brand new thing that we can start to flesh out. And
I really like that part. So if you folks see it, you can copy that and send it to your friends.
Yeah, exactly. You can also just copy these entire object structures, which is crazy, right? You can just if you had the two editors open side by side, so like a new app and an old app, I actually just did this 24 hours ago. I literally took my NFT object, my collection object, and a couple other things. I copied and I pasted them into a completely unrelated app, and then I had minting up and running in that app in, I don't know, a couple hours, right? So so again, like, things are really portable. So we're gonna do the referral user. So what we're doing here is actually creating a little bit of an object, right? Because we may have some more values we want to use over time. We may not. We're probably not going to use them in this particular run through, but just to give you an idea. So, like, for instance, sometimes referral codes, they have a validity. Like, maybe you want to turn them off. So we want like a yes, no, right? And then of course the actual referral value itself. That's the big one, or the code itself. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go back to the screen, and we got pretty straightforward thing here. We're going to click on the button. This is a good way for beginners, right? Just to start to link like visually what you're seeing with what it's going to do. Click the button. We're going to do add workflow. And so just like that, we basically spun up a new workflow. Again, think of this as like, Lego blocks for logic. So button clicks. Now what? So I played around with this a little bit yesterday. And what we're going to do is we're going to just we're going to create a state in this page just to store the referral code that we're going to generate. And so what we did here, so affiliate is the name of the entire page, right? So just to kind of talk through this as we're building it. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a little variable that is associated with the bigger page. I could technically do that for any element. I can create a state for any element, but what I like to do is save it at the page level, just because in that case, I just know where everything is. Like if you saved a variable on all the little elements, like it would take forever to figure out.
That's actually a nifty trick.
Yeah.
And that never even occurred to me.
Yeah.
I never touched the page.
Yeah, exactly. So, again, kind of a best practice. I think states, it's a pretty actually important part of Bubble. It's one of the ones that's a little less intuitive because even like to find it, you got to click a little exclamation and it's not like really, super visible. But really important once you start wanting to do things like save different values and things like that. So what we're going to do here is calculate formula, generate random string, and calculate formula is built into Bubble. So again, this is I'm not sure if they had this like a year or two ago because I think I remember having to just like figure this out maybe like a year or two ago when I was looking at this. But anyway, they have it now. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create, let's say, a random string with letters, capital letters, numbers, no special characters because that might get a little too crazy. Close that out. We're going to, just to make it a little bit more unique, let's see if we can append. And let's just use the current user's wallet address. Yep. And what we'll do is we'll just take the last, let's say 4 characters or something of the user's wallet address. So there we go. We generated a unique referral code, and we can make that as complex or whatever as we want. I can make it 12 characters, 20 characters, whatever. But the basic construct is there, right? And what we've done is we've saved that to a state in the affiliate page. And the next thing we're going to do is we're actually just going to create a thing, right? So now that we have that data object, which we just spun up in like seconds, basically, called a tonic referral code, we're going to create one. The name we're going to actually just pull in from that input, right? So again, let's say this eventually potentially fleshes out to something like campaigns or whatnot. For right now, it's just, just a value that we contribute to just start to differentiate, different codes and maybe who created them or when they were created. Let's say the code is valid right away when it's created. The user is the current user who's creating it, and the value, the important value, is from the affiliates and the referral code. So we're going to save that value. So that's pretty much it. So we're going to follow along. We're going to do a little bit of testing here, and we're going to check the database afterwards. So let's see. Close this out.
Excuse me. What do you mean when you say that's pretty much it? That's really the referral code, right? But we have to use it. Then.
Yeah. So we're going to use that referral code, and there's a second half to this, right? We want to be able to
with the contracts and how to.
Well, actually,
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, actually, I guess technically there's kind of two parts to it, right? But the critical next step is the referee, the person who's invited. We want to be able to track that referral code, store it somehow, right? Track it, and then have the app actually do something with it, right? So so we'll step through all of that actually, but first what we want to do is just make sure this basic workflow is working. So there you go, we got a value. Oh, I'm not logged in. Ha. So that's kind of what I mean by level 1, level 3, right? So if you're at level 3 in terms of a functionality, that usually involves things like building in, like make sure a function that requires someone to log in is only executing when they're logged in. So like putting some conditionals on things like this only runs when users logged in, and if the user's logged out, it's generally kind of a nice user experience to pop up like an alert and say, hey, you're not logged in, right? Would be kind of a good idea to log in, that type of thing. So now that we are logged in, let's try that again. And yeah, there we go. So we have a random string. And what's really cool again with the debugger, right, is by clicking that value, I can step through how it was constructed. So each of these steps from my prior creation of the workflow, like we were just looking at, I can just kind of double check and say, oh, okay, so I calculate a random string. I have the user's wallet. I want to truncate it to the last 4, so that's the EB0F, and so you can kind of step through. It's pretty cool. And then the last thing, I want to create an object, which is this tonic referral code. Has the name, is valid for the current user. And there it is. There's the code. So we're going to do one other thing here just to double check. And then actually what we'll do is we'll build in a little quick list so we can actually see it as we're creating these. Again, gives the user who's generating referral codes a little bit of a nicer experience. And then also when you're testing, doesn't hurt. Like, you can obviously go into the database and check these things too. But I think it just makes sense to be able to see what you're creating, what these referral codes are that you're creating. So so here we are. This is the database, and yeah, there it is. That's what we just created. So I went to the data tab, app data, and then you may not see it, but what's selected down here is the tonic referral code. So we're looking at a data table of the referral codes we've created. And the next thing I'm going to do is come back to the design page, just drop in a quick repeating group actually. And the repeating group is a very handy and pretty powerful element in Bubble. It comes in by default with 4 rows, 1 column. The rows we actually want to make just dynamic. Like if we have 50 referral codes, we want it to have 50 rows, let's say. And in that case, we just set a minimum height for the row. And we also just want it to take up, we don't want it to be this skinny thing. So I'm going to take off this fixed width, and that way it takes up the whole width of the content container. And what we're going to do is we're going to just start to drop a few things. So I want to drop, and this may not, again, be the super prettiest thing, but we're going to drop a text box we actually need to define what type of object this repeating group is looking at and tell it which set of those things to look at. So we're going to look at the set of all referral codes, but we want to filter it by the person who created it, right? So we don't necessarily want to show all the referral codes to everybody. So that now tells the repeating group, hey, repeating group, you're looking at referral codes. And by the way, just show the referral codes that were created by that particular user. So we're good now. And now when we go back to this cell, so this cell will replicate itself. So you only need to populate the first cell in the repeating group, and then it knows to take that and just replicate it all the way down. And so we're just going to say, hey, text box. And it's kind of cool. Again, it knows now that it's looking at referral codes. So when I start to populate these expressions, a lot of the stuff is just preloaded. So I just say, hey, text box, whatever the current referral code is, pull that in. And what I want you to show is first the name. So here's the referral code's name. I can copy and paste this value. So copy and paste. And then let's say the next thing we want to show is the value itself. And the last thing we'll do is actually something a little bit kind of cool. This is a free plugin, I believe. There's different toggles. There's one that I just kind of like because it looks kind of nice. It's called the Ionic toggle. And I'm going to plop that in. So, just typical toggle. I think this one is styled to look more like an iPhone type of toggle. But what we're going to do here is we're going to do something kind of cool here, which is called binding, right? So binding is a way to tie that particular input to an actual value, like in real time. So if you flip the switch there, it's changing the object underneath. So if it's like, switched off, I flip it, then it's turning on that, this is valid value to yes. Like as soon as I click it, it's basically like the two are just linked, tied at the hip, right? Just to make sure that actually goes through, because as a default, Bubble actually has some protective measures on that, so people aren't just like changing values willy-nilly. So what we're going to do, and actually has a nice message here to talk through, like, oh, there's no privacy rules. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to data, and go to privacy, go down to, it's already selected, so it kind of knows what we're looking for. Again, Bubble's kind of cool that way. So what are we going to do here? Binding. And what we're going to do is this referral code's user is current user. And when that is true, we want to allow auto binding, and specifically on this is valid value. Because if we didn't do that, it would say, oh, you don't have permission to change its value. So let's come back here, do a quick refresh. Again, another thing from prior episodes, one of the things I love about Bubble is its instant deployment, right? So as soon as I've written this, there it is. That's the referral code I just generated. It was generated as valid, but now that I have permission and this particular little toggle is bound, if I flip the switch off and I go back to the database, I think I might need to refresh here, but there it is. Referral is valid is no, right? So again, there's some little things here, and this is just because the table didn't refresh. So if I reloaded, that would show no. But yeah, in a couple minutes time, we were able to generate referral code with a real unique ID with a little bit of a predefined value. So like in the off chance that the random generator happened to generate two of the same code, you have this piece of the wallet, which would differentiate. And so let's flip this to valid. And the last thing actually we want to do is actually, give the user a way to copy it, right? They want to be able to copy it to their clipboard. And that again is pretty easy, right? So what we're going to do here, we'll go back to design. Literally just going to drop a button in here. So let's see if we can, yep, there we go. I like to do it a little bit styled. And let's see, copy link. And we're going to add the workflow here. And what we're going to do here, this again is a built-in function in Bubble already. So you see here, copy to clipboard. There's a couple different flavors of this. The one that we're going to use is static text. And basically, we're just going to construct it, right? So what it is going to be the website's home URL, which is handy, right? Because if you're in a test environment versus a live environment or whatnot, or maybe you map this to your domain, like mydomain.com or whatever, it'll know what URL if you're referring to. You don't have to like figure it out and like manually put that in. So website home URL is dynamic. So whatever context the app is in, it'll know. But what we do then need to do is append, and this is a little bit of URL stuff, right? So what we're doing is we're adding parameters to the HTML, to the URL. And what we're going to do is we're going to create one called ref. And later on the receiving side, when I'm a customer or a new user, I'm going to look for that specific value, this ref value, right? So ref, append, and again, the button knows where it is. So this is like, these little things add up, right? The button knows where it is. So I don't have to go hunt and peck and say, oh, by the way, that last referral code thing I created, I got to find that and I got to add it. Like literally first thing on the list, oh, you probably are looking for the referral code in this row of the list. Yes, that's what I'm looking for. And I want to put in that referral value that we just created. And by the way, just a little bit of a user.
So right now, you're passing URL parameters.
Yep.
And using that, huh?
Yes. So what we're doing is we're actually going to create the actual link that someone could click, and that would take them to our app with that referral link populated. And then we just need to build the logic on the other side to catch it, right? And to actually do stuff with it. And we're going to do that. The place to do that, I think, and I thought about this yesterday, is again, probably the header, right? Because we want that thing to catch no matter where they end up, whether it's the home page or, you know, some other page in the app or whatever. We want that same logic to hold. And so the header is a good place because right now, the way this app is set up, the header is on every single page. And I just generally think that's a good practice. Actually, I was working on helping someone on one of their apps yesterday. And they, for instance, had some login and connectivity workflows like in 3 different places. They had one on the header, they had one on their landing page, and they had another set on their goodbye page, which is like if you log out or whatever. It works, certainly, but I think it makes things a little harder to manage over time because for me, for instance, I was trying to like help, you know, tweak some of the logic, and I didn't realize at first that I was like, why isn't this working, you know? And then I realized like, oh, okay. Like there's actually 3 sets of the same thing of this like Web3 auth connect, you know, workflow. And then, so I had to make the change in 3 different places. Right. So the general rule of thumb for coding or no coding even is if you have the chance to do something once and use it multiple times, especially if you know you're going to use it a lot in multiple places, it's generally worth the investment of time and effort to build that in a bit of a more reusable way up front. Or put it in a place where it's reusable, like already, like again, for example, the header element. So, but yeah, Joseph, so what we did is actually we created this.
And if you're in the audience, you're allowed to take the header and make it into a footer too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
You're allowed.
You're allowed. Yeah. It's your app, man. You're allowed to do whatever. So again, just because I like to just make sure things are, the bits and bobs are working, I like to step through. But so yeah, there it is. So like I said, website home URL, it knows, right? Even with this gobbledygook version, blah, blah, blah. And then it attached the referral code that we're looking at. Copy the clipboard, gave a little bit of a, hey, what's up? It's copied. And then if I went to another tab and pasted it, there it is, right? So the app itself is not ready yet to receive this, right? Because it doesn't know on the receiving end what a reference.
Wait, look at that URL. So that's
Yeah.
on version test. That's the gobbledygook you were saying, huh?
Yeah. So we created a branch,
Okay,
and the way
okay.
the way Bubble is handling the branches now, they're actually also generating a bit of a random, sequence. But this is Tonic 2. Like basically what this is saying is we're looking at the Tonic 2 branch of our code. But the stuff after it is the stuff we've created, right? Or we've added rather. So we have our referral. I'm gonna just create one more just for the heck of it. There you go, fun referral. Another random code just beneath. So there we go. We're spinning out referral codes. A brand new user who's looking to become an affiliate can do this. We can also automate this in the background. So it's like, hey, if you want one code per user, as soon as they sign in, or as soon as they click the button to say I want to become an affiliate, then you could use these same workflows to generate it. But now we're going to focus on the receiving end, right? So on the header side,
Yeah, because you have to link the code on Bubble to on-chain transactions, actually.
Yes. And to do this, we're actually going to use another plugin. This is not a Novabloq plugin, but it's a good one nonetheless. And the reason why we're going to use this, so here it is. It's called Simple Local Storage, and I'll explain what this is. And it's as simple as it gets. There's like one line of description, and half of that line is in Portuguese. So it's pretty bare bones as is, but we could take a quick look at the.
But it's a good plugin, right?
But it's a good plugin. It is actually very good. It's one that
no matter if you know Portuguese or not,
Yeah.
you can verify its actions on chain.
Yeah. Well, yeah. This one is actually when it says local, it's like really local. So what this is basically a way to store values. I mean, I think people generally know what cookies are, right? So like cookies are the things that the browser uses to store a little information based on like a user's session, like their.
Oh, that's a nifty one. Okay, I was wondering why you were pulling out a Web3 plugin, not from Novabloq.
Yeah. Well, this one is not necessarily Web3. This one is actually just like Web2, right? But the reason we need this,
it's a Bubble utility, so to speak,
Yeah.
to use the S3 storage there
Yep.
in a simple way.
Yep.
Actually, it has a very simple name.
Yeah, simple as it gets. So what I'm going to do here, and I'll show you why we need it, and I'll kind of talk through. So I'm creating another trigger, which happens once the app is loaded, but I'm going to look for that ref. And the way I look for that little ref, like we added previously, this question mark. So question mark is a way to tell the browser, hey, I got some parameters coming. The next thing is, here's the name of the parameter and the equals, and here's the value of the parameter. So basically, this is kind of a nice way in HTML that we can actually like add and pass logic around in the actual HTML. What we're going to do. Oops.
So you're going to use the plugin to capture the URL parameters passed in.
Exactly.
Got it. Very nifty trick.
Right. And the reason why that's important, right? And again, I spent some time thinking about this yesterday, is you're going to have new users. They're not going to be logged in, right? But ultimately, when they do log in, you're going to want to take that value and save it to their newly created user account, right? And so to do that, the best way to do it is something like this, where you're storing it locally, again, maybe in a cookie or something like that. And then as soon as they log in, we want to take that value we just saved and then save it to the user's, brand new user account. Like they didn't exist just prior to that, right? So there was nothing to save to until they logged in for the first time. So the way we do that is we I don't know if you caught this. I'll do it one more time just so people can see. Is we get data from URL, and this is specifically set up to look for those question mark values in the browser in the URL. And what we're going to do is we're going to run this code only if that's not empty, only if that's populated, because we don't want to be running this all the time. And also just to be a little more efficient, it's good to set it up as a separate little workflow and not try to, jam pack it into all these other things. And what we're going to do is we're going to store that value. So, I might need to drop the element in the page. So we'll do that. We got this handy plugin. Again, this is a little bit of a best practice. If you have, even a few plugins, it's nice to set them up in a floating group so you can always find them. And they're not just like randomly spread out throughout the page. And these floating groups, you can also just make them super tiny. You can put them underneath the page so they're never visible. So it's just kind of like a hidden thing. But in terms of building, it's always accessible and you can always see where it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to find
some trick. Yeah.
What's that?
I think like a lot of like young Bubble users like myself.
Yeah.
We learn kind of ad hoc, taking techniques and piecing them together as we go along, which is totally fine. And at the end, you do get your fluidity there when you create.
Yeah.
But very quickly, you get overwhelmed if you haven't organized properly with foresight, with experience,
right?
And putting things like in these floating groups, the header,
right?
Removing plugins on a template.
Yeah.
That sort of thing, that's part of that training, that professionalization. And, I really appreciate this insight, really.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. And this is stuff that, again, 2 years ago, I was new to Bubble. So this is stuff that I've picked up along the way. It's just, you just kind of figure out some of this stuff organically because you realize you're like, I keep finding myself doing this or messing up in the same way. Like, what's a better way to do this? And then you just kind of like, oh, okay, maybe it would be better if I stored all the plugins in one place so I don't have to go like looking for them all the time. So what we're doing here is, again, this is loading, or this is triggering when the page is loaded. That ref value is not empty. We're going to use this simple local storage, which is basically a way to access cookies. So we're just going to save that value as a cookie. And then what we're actually going to do, this may seem a little weird, but we are going to retrieve it right away after. So let's see. What is there we go, get. And we're going to retrieve it immediately after. And the reason for that is we want it to just be there. We'll see this when we step through, right? But we want to be able to access that value right away when the user is logged in, right? So, and the way this element is set up, it only stores one value at a time. So that's why it's probably the simple version as opposed to some of these other cookie plugins where you could just probably do a bunch of stuff. But this is all we need. This is all we need. We just need to be able to store the value, have it be there when we need it. And when we need it is when the user's logged in. So we're going to create one more workflow here. Another thing I've just kind of picked up, I like to use a particular color for when I'm building new workflows. Maybe even if I'm testing something, I like to use cyan because it kind of stands out to me. And it's not like the obvious red and green type of thing. And so this one is when the user's logged in. But what we're going to do is we're only going to trigger this if the local storage element's value is not empty. So the user's logged in for the first time. If they have a referral code, we should have caught it here. Page is loaded, because again, that happens right when the page is loaded. Referral code is captured, stored in a cookie, then retrieved again so that we can actually see it for the purpose of this, right? If we didn't do this get, the simple local storage element's value would be empty, and then this wouldn't trigger, right? So
it's really, really nice to see this.
Yeah.
In Bubble, how simple everything seems in basically visually.
Yeah, agreed. I think again, I just love. Call it coding or no coding or whatever. I just love building stuff this way because it just, it just seems so much more intuitive, right? So, so once the user's logged in, we're going to do something kind of interesting here. We're going to save in that user's account the person who referred them, not the code, we're actually going to store the person or the user, right? And the way that we're going to do that was, one, we're going to create a new parameter. Let's say referred by user, and then we just do create field. This is going to be of type user. So again, we're going to save a user value in here. And what we're going to do is, this will be a couple of steps, but we're going to search for a referral code that has that value. Referral value equals simple local storage's value, right? Because again, we saved that as a cookie, we retrieved it, and now it's actually that key, that unique, referral code is in here. We're going to do a search for it. That should retrieve it. Searches return a list because you could have multiple results for a search. We're just going to look for the first one because we're pretty sure there's only that one referral code. And then we're going to store the referrals, the user. And this should be all blue because all that syncs up. The blue is Bubble's way of telling you, hey, you created this parameter. It's expecting a user. Okay, cool. This expression checks out. It's returning a single user. So that is the receiving end. That's actually it. So if I logged in, and we'll try this out in a second with that link on a separate user screen. And actually, the thing we'll do to test this is add a breakpoint. So this is another good thing to kind of understand. A good best practice is the use of breakpoints, because we want to just make sure that these things are triggering the way that we want them to, right? So let's come back. We can actually have this link ready made. Let's kind of go over. Oops. And log in here. Actually, what I'm going to do is add a little bit more to this, just so we have the debugger on. So again, that's important because we want to see what's happening. We're still in kind of building and testing mode, right? So that thing's going to load, and it'll load with the debugger. There you go, breakpoint. So just to recap what we just did there, right? So aside from creating a bunch of empty tabs, what we did was we created these two new workflows. We highlighted them. We checked off add a breakpoint. So if we ran these in the debugger mode, which we did, you do that by putting debug mode equals true into the URL. And it just knows. It knows, oh, you want to stop and take a look at this. Cool. Breakpoint, right? And now what I can do is just do a simple step through. There's that code, right? That checks out. That's the one that we logged in with. It's saving it to the cookie, and it's retrieving it. And we'll let the rest run out. And then the next thing we can do to double check that I retrieved it is we do inspect. And this is really cool. I can just literally just look up that element, and there it is. There's the value. So in a couple of steps, basically a couple minutes, we created the creation of the referral code, and now we've created the logic to receive the referral code. And I'm going to log in. And this could be a new user. Oh, maybe I already. Oh, you know what? Yeah, let's see. I think I already logged in previously, so it remembered, actually, speaking of cookies, it remembered my prior account, but that's cool. Anyway, we logged in, and there it is. Users logged in. It recognized that element's value is not empty. We're going to do one step through, and again, cool thing about the debugger, I can click this value and do a step through of what the value is actually coming out with. And the last one, there's a lot of red here. I'll explain what that is in a second. But yeah, this is the guy who created it, was awesome dude. And now he's saved to my user account as the guy who referred me because I used his referral code, right? And this red stuff is actually it's not bad, actually. It's pretty important. So Bubble has really, I think, comprehensive privacy rules. Actually, they actually just made an announcement last week that they're now SOC 2 compliant. A little bit of a detour, but in my old days working in financial marketplaces, SOC 2 was a pretty big deal. Basically, it's a way of saying it's not only about the technical stuff, it's actually about their workflow and how they actually run their operations. And it's basically a way of saying the way they run their operations is you know, has the not maximum, but has a very high level of security and privacy. Because maximum obviously is like diminishing returns. But anyway, this is one aspect of that where any data that you mark as private, it's protected on the server side, meaning it's never actually even sent to the user's browser. So all of these values, they're currently hidden fields because of privacy rules, as it says. And the way we can come back and look at that and open that up if we wanted to was come back to the privacy tab, so data, privacy, user, and here's a lot of these values that are unchecked, so they're going to be hidden. But I could just check a bunch of these, and then they could be displayed on the customer's browser if I wanted to. But again, I think this is a really nice aspect of Bubble. I get asked that sometimes, like, how do you feel about the security? Having worked in financial marketplaces, for several years prior, and just looking into this before I jumped in full time, I got really comfortable with the security for reasons like this, right? Like, if you don't want to show something, it never even gets sent. That's the way it should be done. So anyway, I have just logged in with this user. I've saved the referral code. Let's come back to the, actually, let's just double check which user I'm using here. Okay, so I'm going to copy my wallet, come back to the app database, look at users, which I am looking at, do a quick search for that wallet. Here it is. Here's that new user. And if I find the value there it is, referred by user, and it's saved, right? And then the very last step here is for fun. Let's come back to the fund page. And this is one example, right? So, different affiliate structures will have different payout logic, different payout methodologies. You can we're not going to get into it in here, but you could just as easily set up a Stripe workflow, right? If somebody's getting a subscription value, you want to send them a certain percentage. We've done that before. Just as an aside, what you want to look into there is something called Stripe Connect. So Stripe Connect is Stripe's way of setting up basically sub payments, right? Like split payments. So you can do it with Stripe. There's actually other methodologies. There's one I'm actually looking into, which we need to kind of kick the tires on a bit more. But there is a plugin, a Novabloq plugin called Now Payments, and what they do is they kind of set up recurring crypto payments. And again, that could be an option where you set that up in a certain way where it's paying out a certain percentage. But what we're going to do here is we're going to just add a little bit of logic here. So again, this was to create a fund using a split contract. Initially, the split contract was only sending 100% of the proceeds to one particular wallet. But let's say that we want to incorporate the referral structure in here. So we have this create fund workflow. What it currently does is it defines the recipients in a pretty straightforward way. It says, hey, here's the list of recipients, and that is a list of one. And what that one recipient or value is the current user's wallets and the value 100, which basically says 100%. So this is cool. I think this works if the current user's, let's say, referral value is empty. So here it is, referred by user. I'm not sure why the search is not coming up right now, but current users referred by user is empty. Is empty. Right. Okay. So if the user was not referred by anyone, and again, we just saw that on the receiving end, right? If they logged in for the first time with that referral code, or even if they logged in, if it's an existing user but they logged in with that referral code, it would set that value. And as long as that if that value is empty, then we're going to do this the old-fashioned way and have one wallet receive 100% of the proceeds. But if we want to split it, let's say, this is what we would do. We would set this logic to not empty. And let's say we do, I don't know, again, you could set up some logic on this on the back end to kind of determine these splits and all that. But we're going to create two entries now. One where it's the current user getting, let's say, 90%. That could be whatever, 99, 95. And we're going to copy this one more time. And this is why it was important to have the user saved and not just the code saved, right? Because now we can do certain things like this where, first of all, we know this referred by user is not empty, so we know that value is there. It's pointing to an actual person or an actual user. So now instead of current user, instead of current user's wallet, we're going to do a little bit of a daisy chain here. We're going to say the current user's referrer, we're going to want their wallet, right? Then we're going to append, just in terms of what the code is expecting. It wants wallet : percentage. So that's what we're kind of putting together here. So it's going to be the referrer's wallet address : one more append, and then here we'll just put 10, let's say. And that is pretty much it. That is it, man. So like what we basically did now is we set up a little bit of a logic, a fork in the logic. So whenever somebody's looking to create a fund, if they were referred by somebody, that fund would now automatically split proceeds 90-10 between themselves and the referrer. And I think coming back to what we talked about in the prior streams, that part is completely on chain. It's completely transparent. People can look at it, see the logic, see the parameters, all that. And the fact that that just kind of runs by itself is again, pretty mind-blowing for me.
The mind-blowing thing for me, I think, is I wasn't expecting you to be like, all right, we're done. That was like a break for me. I was like super concentrated. There's like 4 steps. Each of those steps has 4 steps.
Yep.
The end.
Yep.
That is so much simpler than say Stripe.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
Like,
you know,
we cannot set up Stripe. Like if you speedrun Stripe, it will take you longer than this video, 100%.
100%.
And this was like leisurely. It was like you were strolling. I was like super concentrated. You're like, all right, we're done.
Yeah.
And here it is on chain.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm kind of flabbergasted.
Totally. And we'll see actually, let's see if this goes through. I have a balance. So I know this is set up for gasless funding, but anyway, let's see. But yeah, to your point, setting up Stripe actually does take a fair amount of time, not only because of the workflows. Again, you have this thing called Stripe Connect. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but it takes a while to set up. And then secondly, you actually have to spend the time to set your account up on Stripe, which takes like, whole other amount of time, half an hour, or whatever, hour plus. So yeah, it's definitely,
like an hour plus when you speed run it and you know what you're doing. But for me,
you're
exactly. Still doing it and it's been weeks. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So here you'll see we're stepping through. So we constructed this recipient list, right? So there's one wallet getting 90, another wallet getting 10. That's our affiliate payout. And that thing is going to persist. There. Yeah. So that thing's going to persist.
OX, that's a contract address. Yeah.
That is a contract address. So
okay.
We're going to see if this thing deploys. We'll cross our fingers. Oh, okay, great. So we'll oh, I see. Gateway. Okay, I think that's the IPFS thing. But we'll give this another shot. But yeah, I think, in terms of the core logic, we've pretty much run through, a basic affiliate structure. So just to kind of recap, we set up some of the logic to generate the referral code. So some of the built-in things for Bubble in terms of creating a unique code, you can make that as long or as complex as you want, or as simple or whatnot. But it is a good idea to put a little bit of a specific identifier either on the beginning or the end of that, just in the off chance you have 2 code. It's like an infinitesimal probability, but if you have 2 codes that happen to generate the same thing. And then second, we created the logic to receive that code. So again, any user, as long as they have that in their URL, they can log in and have that be stored and have their referrer the user stored in their account for future use and future reference, which we did right away. So what we did was we took that user, we referred to that user not only to trigger a certain set of workflows, right? Basically to have a fork in the logic and say, if they have a referrer, that value is populated, then do one thing versus, do a separate thing if they don't. And so, again, any of those different modules, I think the two, the generation of the referral code and the receiving, those are pretty I think those are pretty good the way that they're set up in our current run through. I don't think you could probably add some bells and whistles, but those are pretty clean. But obviously the payout method could evolve, right? Depending on your model, what you're using, what your different kind of payment services you're using and things like that, or if it's all on chain, again, you can do it. In that case, split contracts are definitely your friends, right? Split contracts are the way to go to, efficiently split and allocate funds in a predetermined and immutable way, right? It's not something somebody could fiddle with down the road. It's pretty much set upon creation. So, yeah, man, I'm looking at this, coming back to some of the comments. Yeah. I see some comments from Jason, on redundancy and things like that. Yeah, and also, let's see, template work you just did in Bubble rendered to this affiliate app. Peek at the HTML headers, HTML source. Yeah, the HTML source you could look at, but Bubble basically kind of reinterprets things in mostly JavaScript. So. But you can add HTML headers to any given page. I'll do that really quick too. But yeah, agreed. The database, Jason says, database integration is very smooth. It's super simple. I'm literally spinning up objects, creating data models in minutes, and the cost, the effort involved in doing that is pretty low. So if you screw up, it's actually okay. You just kind of rejigger it. You remove a few parameters, redo an object, whatever. And then, I think the affiliate token thing, ideally we build it.
You did it really smooth.
Yeah.
The affiliate token things with the page parameters, I think that was really nifty. The split contract, I can just see that. I'm going to put it here in my page. I want to put it here in my page for basically anything you can buy,
Yeah, exactly. So split contract can be used in a lot of different ways. It's kind of by design. Some people, again, use them for royalties. Some people use them for DAOs. They can. I've seen tests of split contracts. I mean, you could have 1,000 different allocations. It can get pretty crazy. Okay, so this is a good sign here. Let's see what pops up here. We got a signature request. So, and then we'll see what pops out. But yeah, I think that again, this concept of building blocks, right? So the split contract is just one. The cool thing about
I'm seeing the video with the lag because I'm following on YouTube.
Oh, okay,
talking in Google.
Yeah.
And that's it there.
Yeah. So there we go.
Gosh darn it, he's done it again.
Yeah, it took a little while, and we had our scripted little hiccup as usual, but this time was a bit shorter. So we got our new
That
fund.
was smooth, man. I think we did a very useful tangent or two.
Yeah, I think so. And I'll put those in the timeline. So again, the goal here is not, if people want to watch the whole thing, awesome. But I think certainly in some cases, some topics will be more relevant than others. So I'll call those out in the timeline.
You would be surprised because you do it so smooth. And when you're building yourself, you could start without a template, just with the plugins following this video.
Yeah, definitely. And then, again, you have references, right? So I would say if you're going to spend the time to pick something apart, or to just dig in and try to understand, the header is a pretty good one. Because again, if you're going to try to build your own app from scratch, chronologically or sequentially, first things first, right, is login, right? Getting the user into the app, creating a new user if you need to do that, logging in an existing user, saving some of those values, doing some of the logical checks on logins, right? All that kind of blocking and tackling stuff is like, layer zero, right? That's like the baseline of getting your app set up. And then, and then from there, you basically put that in a reusable element, call it header, call it footer, call it whatever you want. Call it the connect widget, whatever.
You're allowed. It's your app. You do what you want,
man. Yeah, no rules, man. So
that's what I really like about this, because yes, I definitely want to become a central bank, but at the same time,
yeah, yeah, totally. So anyway, I again, couple tangents, but I think they were useful ones, hopefully. And I think, in terms of the actual coding, we'll give ourselves a little wiggle room and say, yeah, we got that under the hour. If we kind of take out the tangents. But again, hopefully that was...
come on. Are you seriously timing it?
Again, it's my OCD.
There's definitely going to be someone in the comments that says, okay, this was 62 minutes and 45 seconds with
It'll
no
be
timing.
like, if YouTube still had a thumbs down, I would give you a thumbs down, because that was 62 minutes. So anyway, I think we're going to call it another session. Again, really, really cool idea that we had the chance to play around with. Totally welcome other ideas. So it's Jason.
You're not going to be too busy to keep doing this series, are you?
Oh, dude. As long as people have questions and they're looking to build stuff and they're not sure how, I'm there, man. Like that's
great, because I'm definitely going to try and get some interest and get some questions, because it drives us forward today with Jason, and hopefully tomorrow with others,
Totally, yeah. And totally appreciate, Jason, you dropping in. Again, if this was helpful for you, help spread the word. I mean, again, more the merrier. I know some people have been watching this after the fact, which is great too. But yeah, live, it's certainly cool to get that that feedback loop going. And
for me, it's just so impressive. Yeah. Bubble and Web3 live, totally fluid, no mistakes.
Minimize mistakes wherever possible. But anyhow, cool, man. I think we're gonna call it a wrap. Again, super appreciative, Joseph, for
and congrats on your acquisition.
Thanks.
Really
man.
Looking forward to the new plugins, the ones that aren't going to be in the series, the ones that we'll discover soon.
We will. We're always going to be building, man, and a big part of that is we want to build what is useful. So, again, if people have comments, feedback, questions, things that they're imagining that they want to do, they're not sure if it's possible. Like that's what the Discord's there for. That's what we're here for. So yeah, have at it.
Well, thanks.
Awesome. All right, we'll call it a wrap, man. So see you on the Discord, and see you guys around. Thanks.